1-4 solving equations. There are some properties of equality here, and they kind of look familiar to some things we've already talked about. But reflexive property, A equals A, which is the same thing. We talked about that last in geometry too. Symmetric, if A equals B, then B equals A. Transitive, if you have two things equal to the same thing, those two things are equal. So if A equals B and B equals C, then A's got to equal C. And your substitution is A equals B, then you can replace A with B and vice versa. Either one doesn't matter. So, again, one-step equations. What is the solution of x plus 4 equals negative 12? Again, as you go across the equal sign, I always like to draw a break point there because when I cross the equal sign, I have to do the opposite operation. So we're adding 4 here. I want to make sure I subtract 4 from both sides. So I end up with x equals negative 16. Now, multi-step equations get a little bit more complicated because you usually have y on both sides of the equation, but when you're looking at this, what's the solution of that equation? How and where do I want to start? When I look at things, it really doesn't matter. You can get the same answer no matter what you do. People talk about moving the smallest variable first. It really doesn't matter if you want to go left or right. However you feel comfortable, you make it your own. But what I need to do first, though, is I need to distribute this 3 through. Now, technically, you could also divide by 3. So, again, there's multiple ways to do it. I like using distributive property. If you don't use it. But I get negative 27 plus 6y equals 3y minus 9. Now, how do you solve? Again, I tend to fall back on the smallest y first because I don't usually like dealing with negative numbers, but it is what it is. So I'm going to subtract 3y from both sides. That gives me positive 3y on the left. Again, if you need to draw the line, draw the line. Okay, equals negative 9. Add 27 now. Why? Because it's negative, and I'm going across the equal sign. Let's get 3y equals 18. How do I break apart multiplication? I divide. I get y equals 6. We kind of come into thinking about the equations, whether is the equation always, sometimes, or never true. And what that usually occurs is that when your variable disappears. How do I know the variable disappears? Well, you look at it. So let's try to solve here. Combine like terms on the same side. So you get 3x plus 4 equals 6x minus 3x is 3x plus 5. How do I know this is going to cancel? Well, 3x and 3x, the same variables on both sides of the equation. It's always going to cancel if that's the case. Well, let's go through the process. Subtract 3x, subtract 3x. 3 minus 3 is 0, so that's gone. So I end up with 4 equals 5. Is 4 ever equal to 5? And, of course, we know 4 doesn't equal 5, so my answer is never. Okay, so if we look down below, 6x minus 2x, let's repeat the process. Combine like terms. You get 4x plus 5 equals 4x, and then 4 plus 1 is 5. Subtract 4x. 4x minus 4x is 0, so that's gone. 4x minus 4x is 0, that's gone. I end up with 5 equals 5. Well, now I answer the question. Does 5 equal 5? Yep. How? Always, sometimes, never. Well, always 5 equals 5. So my answer here is it's always true. And now the fun starts. The equation C equals 5/9 F minus 32 relates temperature in degrees Fahrenheit, F in degrees Celsius, C. What is F in terms of C? So they really don't want you to solve. They just want you to get the F by itself as opposed to the C by itself. So you can go backwards. So if I have the equation C equals 5/9 F minus 32, how do I get the F by itself? So it's kind of reverse order of operations because you're solving. I need to get rid of the 5/9 first. How do I get rid of a fraction? Always reciprocal. So 9/5. 9/5. Why? Because 9/5 times 5/9 is just 1 because it cancels. That's the multiplication property that we talked about earlier. So 9/5 C equals F minus 32. How do I solve for F now? Add 32. Add 32. I get 9/5 C plus 32 equals F. So all I'm doing here is just rearranging numbers. using the opposite operations to cross the equal sign and rearrange the equation to fit my need.